fish where they are, not where they are.
Yeah, and that sounds like, again, it just sounds so dumb, but like muskie can be in all these crazy spots. It's a tough one to go on low probability much further.
Color, action, size, and profiles of musky flies are debated all throughout the musky fishing. Everybody's got a theory. Dan, when you select a musky fly, what do you look at first?
What do I look at first? I look at the flies as tools, all kind of for certain jobs. So I'm first really asking the question, what tool do I need? And then the fly selection becomes easy. And what I mean by that is, where do I think the muskies are? Because they're moving, they're changing depths, they're changing activity, they're changing aggressive behavior. What do I need to do to find them and entice them, and where are they living? Answer that question and it'll tell me where I need to fish. What fly? Okay, so they're super shallow in weeds, that are 2 feet and pretty sloppy. Like, I might run less hooks and something that's higher up in the water column, like a big bushy Buford or a topwater fly. We're getting into later fall up here in Wisconsin, and that's when we start to, the muskie are eating bigger forage. They're being a little bit more efficient with their energy. Throw something kind of matches the hatch there, right? Let's throw the big suckers and get them low and slow. And that, I think, is the general framework for how I pick a fly. Do I have personally flies that are, the fly, it swims this? Sure, a little bit, but I think it's more about, for me and my fishing, is more about finding where the fish are, and then that kind of fills in the fly hole. What do they need? Just one more example is like, it fills in itself, is like middle of the summer around here. We will hear it all over the place. Muskie are being caught. What are they being caught on? Blades. It's a blade bite. All the gear anglers are getting them on blades. You got to burn flies fast. Does it open up in profile and kick? And it doesn't even matter. Can you swim it fast and give them something big and make some noise? And we do that with crazy ugly flies that don't actually swim well, but they make noise and they swim straight right back to the boat really fast. A couple different examples of how I think about flies, and maybe that didn't answer the question, but hopefully it painted the picture a little bit how I think about it.
Yeah, I think we all kind of rely on, if we can, on gear folks, other fly folks, plus your knowledge, plus what might have worked this time last year might be a good place to kind of get in the ballpark.
Yep.
So I think we all kind of do the same, go at it kind of the same way. I like the profile for certain times of the year to start out with, and then I might venture off of it. I might not, just depending on what's going on. If nothing's going on, you don't have any indication of whether you're doing things right, wrong, indifferent. I mean, if they're not eating, they're just not eating. If they're not coming out, they could be 2 foot from the end of your rod and you wouldn't know it.
No, you're exactly right. I will say this, like a big, beautiful, fully dressed, bucktail laden fly. I love it. And getting it to swim and kick. Oh, it's awesome to watch. Like if they're not eating that, I'm not throwing that. I'll throw some ugly crap that, seriously, with egg sinkers clipped on, like crap that just, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Cause they don't make it easy. But you're right about looking at other folks, especially I think in muskie. It's unlike trout, where there are more other anglers in muskie that are conventional anglers than there are fly anglers. And I would say that's not the case with most trout fishing. Typically, right? You're looking to other fly anglers.
I'm not going to miss the opportunity to ask a gear guy going down the river if he's catching a fish.
No doubt. Yep.
We're talking. All right, let's see if I can finish this next part in 15 seconds, because that's a little round circle on everybody's phone whenever they don't want to hear something. From high atop the world headquarters of Southeastern Fly, this is the Southeastern Fly Podcast. Thanks for giving us a listen. Feel free to share with your friends and fishing partners. Subscribe or follow so that you'll be the first to know when an episode drops. If you find value in the podcast, drop by the Southeastern Fly store. We've got hats, t-shirts, hoodies, new winter gear. All that's available, and all of that supports the podcast. So your purchases are what makes this podcast go, and how we pay for the stuff that houses the podcast and gets the podcast out to you. Explore the merch that fuels the Southeastern Fly Podcast. Also, if you need additional information about fly fishing techniques, flies, fly tying gear, etc., we offer fly fishing coaching sessions for additional information when you need it on and off the water. Who's our guest today? He's a musky angler. He's an online fly shop owner, side by side with his spouse Jen, who's also a musky angler. Together, they're soon opening a brick and mortar store in Madison, Wisconsin. He can be found at www.muskyfool.com. Let's welcome the owner of Musky Fool Fly Fishing Company, Dan Donovan. Dan, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wonderful. It's playoff time in musky country. I'm I'm loving life.
I think I just saw where the World Series starts tonight.
Yeah, October. It's time. It's go time.
I used to live in Georgia, and I was a big Braves fan then, and then I kind of got away from baseball, but glad to see them back in the World Series. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
So you and your wife own muskyfool.com. And I've seen y'all around for probably a year or so, something like that. Anyway, time flies, by the way, when you get
it does.
But so let's go into that just for a minute. Tell me how y'all came about doing this.
The short long story is background a little bit. I was in tech startup CFO for about a decade. Jen, my wife, in retail, Duluth, Land's End, big companies, and we were musky anglers. I grew up in Wisconsin, dad and uncle taking me to the North Woods, musky fishing on all types of gear, walleye fishing, the whole 9 yards. Later in life, picked up a fly rod and kind of never looked back in terms of chasing muskies with a fly. Right about that time, Jen and I started fishing a lot together. This was probably 8 years ago. And so she just got wrapped into the musky world and loved it and kind of became an angler on her own. And all of that kind of got us to the point where we were looking, I think a transition was brewing. We had both been kind of in our spot for a while, me especially, the life cycle of the company I was with, it was a good time. And we were also fishing for muskies, we were literally on a trip, unable to find essential gear that we needed, to fill it in. And in the middle of musky country, I mean, blue ribbon, Missoula, Montana of musky. And it kind of just clicked. And we said, well, why not? We'll start with flies and maybe flies. And, there's a lot of people doing flies. And one thing led to another. And then there was also this the greater Madison era, not having a fly shop. So we launched Musky Fool online, really because we had no choice. It was a pandemic. We would have opened a brick and mortar and had to put a close sign on the door. There were not at that time, we were not allowed in Dane County, at least, to go anywhere. Plus our background is definitely e-commerce and direct. So we got the ball rolling that way, along those lines. Kind of the last bastion of a fly shop, the Orvis in the Madison area, closed kind of 8 months into, if I remember correctly, us being live with Musky Fool, and opportunity kind of fell in our lap to acquire a building and ramp up the brick and mortar side. So we're doing that right now. We're in the midst of it, trying to get it all ready for spring.
Good for you. Timing is everything. I mean, that's essentially what you said, is your timing was perfect, but don't ever discount the hard work that you had to put in behind this stuff. That just, it's the day in, day out. It's the grind. Oh, yeah. It's, my mother called me the other day and, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm working on podcast stuff. On a Sunday when everybody else is kicked back watching football, that's what I'm doing, just to make sure that it's out there, because I said it would be out there, So my dad always owned businesses, so she understood that. But again, it makes you think, oh, wait a minute now.
Yep.
Maybe I could have a somewhat normal life, but that's not really as much fun as I want to have. So
no doubt. Not working less hours than the tech startup world, that's for sure.
Ooh,
yeah.
So we're Southeastern Fly, and we've got a guy from Wisconsin on the show. So here's the reason why. There are plenty of great anglers and great fly shops down here, but I think you said it right. You're in the mecca of musky country. And the other day we were talking, if you get 11 falls in a day, that's a big deal, right? That's a good day. For us, 11 follows is something we will talk about forever, right? Because there's more opportunity up there. I think we're going to find out. I think there's more opportunity. The more opportunity you have, the more patterns you can get, the more you will know, oh, okay, well, this is this. And you start connecting dots. So you can connect the dots faster maybe than what someone down here can connect if there aren't as many fish. And I don't feel like, using air quotes here, that there are quite as many fish down here in our smaller rivers than there are up there in yours.
I think you hit it from two angles. We have more water and that holds musky, and just more musky usually per river mile or per lake acre.
Yeah.
But Canada's got more than us too. So there's always, but I hear you. And I think you're absolutely right. And we're definitely blessed up here. We still stock brown trout and stuff but it's our native fish. It's the king of the castle in Wisconsin.
So what I want to do is take the things that you've learned,
sure,
and we want to go by water temperature, I think, because that's the commonality that we have. We both fish lakes, we both fish rivers, but the commonality, I feel like, and I hope you see it this way too, is maybe if we went by water temperatures and just went through the process of the fly and then move into characteristics for movement and motion and retrieve hit all those things by water temp, maybe we can connect those dots between Wisconsin and the South and give the listener something that's useful, or at least, can give them an idea of maybe which way to go when they get on the water. And maybe, sometimes musky anglers can have somewhat of an ego. Sometimes we're not going to say that we're going to solve the world's problems here on a 60 minutes of a podcast, but maybe it gives that person, maybe they go, you know what, I hadn't tried that, or I haven't tried that in a while, so I'm going to try that. And maybe that gives somebody extra arrow in their quiver. So that's kind of the direction I want to head.
We'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do.
Maybe in somebody's fishing life, it'll make a positive impact. Let's start with a higher water temperature. And as we move down, let's just go around 70 degrees, around 60, around 50. We'll start with 70 and around 70 degrees, right? So maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. I don't want to box them in completely, but I'm going down the thermometer because it's fall. We're heading into winter. It's getting colder down here. So this is completely self-serving on the South Pole. Okay.
Hey, we're in that stage too, man. It's perfect.
Let's start there. So when the water temps are around 70 degrees, what's your thought process for the fly and fishing that fly?
It's kind of back to, where are musky at 70 degrees? And first of all, they're happy. 70, 75, like that is peak metabolism. Fish are happy. They're comfortable. The issue for musky is they're usually very spread out at that point. And
right.
In lakes especially, but even in rivers, they can start to spread out because they can be anywhere. They're comfortable. The water temperature suits them. Bait fish are spread out. Everything's spread out. So what we're doing, at least in that, is we're trying to cover water, and we're looking for flies that allow us to cover water, because we have to fish more aggressively, make more noise, akin to what are the gear anglers using at this time? A lot of blades, a lot of top water. A lot of noise, a lot of ruckus, a lot of disturbance. So that's what we try to do. A lot of top water, mornings and evenings, really, really fun in the summer because the fish are aggressive. They're fired up. And when they come in and eat a top water, there's no mistaking it. It's just, it's tougher, can be tougher depending on how you tie the fly or what fly you're using to get them hooked. Because it's, oh my God, it's, if you are a trout setter of musky, a topwater will probably make you trout set to the moon. And then flies that we can cover water with. So more often than not, that's flies that are a little bit easier to cast because you're spraying and praying, and you got to work it back, often fast. So the kick and the move and the swim and all those awesome walk the dog doesn't matter a ton to me in that kind of higher water temp range, because I'm just looking to swim something across an active muskie, and it's probably going to eat it, and I do start faster and I start to work a little bit slower, but that's kind of how I'm at. So it takes actually some of those dimensions that you laid out of the equation. I think speed is the dimension that matters in that time period, both as a triggering mechanism and a way to efficiently cover water, because I think they will get triggered by that. So work it fast. You cannot work it fast enough. Think of the person reeling in a bucktail. They're working it 10 times faster than you. Strip it fast.
One of the things that you said there, and I think this is really important, is if you're working fast, you don't want a fly that's got 10 hooks and cast like a sock either.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, slimmer profile, lighter materials. You still need it to look like a bait fish. It could still be big, but
right,
you got to be able to tug it back really quickly. And because it's going so fast, and we're usually, using intermediates to sink fives, fishing in shallower water, it's got to get down. It can't be the fly that has to kind of get wet and is neutrally buoyant. It has to hit and kind of get down, almost sink. Like if you didn't strip it so that it kind of gets down enough to really work below the surface. So that would be a dimension I'd consider in the summertime. And then as far as color, I think color for musky, nobody knows. I don't know. 80% angler preference. 80-20 rule. 20% is maybe the fish are keying into something a little bit lighter, that orange sucker, white natural-ish spectrum. Maybe they need the black, dark purples, or maybe they need something crazy pink. We don't really know. I think a hungry muskie probably eats 10 out of 10 flies, no matter the color. A finicky one, maybe the finicky ones are where it's like, I don't know, maybe it's the white one or the black one.
I would love to have the time and sometimes the guts just to say, I'm fishing this color fly, period.
I know people that do it.
All fall.
All
and are they successful?
All black. Yeah. He's probably caught more fish than anybody in the last 4 weeks. Hasn't switched the color.
Right. Maybe he switches pattern. Maybe he doesn't, or maybe she doesn't. You know, maybe they just say, this is what I went through this, and I've said this before. I've gone through this thing with trout where I fished a yellow Zoo Cougar for years. That's all I did. That was about the only streamer I would fish. And I could make that sucker do just about anything I wanted to.
Yep.
And I could fish it on a floating line or a sinking line, a heavy sinking line, a medium sink, whatever. I could do all that and make it do what I thought I needed to do. And I'm sure I didn't catch all the fish that I want to believe I did, but I could make it go in and out of wood. I could do all kinds of stuff with it. And I just haven't I keep calling it guts, but I haven't had the same feelings for muskie that I have for this. Maybe that's because I've got 2 fly boxes full of musky flies that I spend a lot of time on. And I feel like I have to fish them when really maybe I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So something just to think about. And that doesn't bode well for you. You're sitting there going, no, David, that's not what we want to
about. I think there are 2 dimensions at least. There is the the fly tying as an off the water, man, this might work. And I'm trying to dial in this hook shank weight ratio. Like I'm playing with these things and it's fun and enjoyable and a way to connect to it off the water. And then, I think I am like probably the worst person to talk about this because I have a garage full, a wall of flies that just sit there and stare at me. And you can only fish so many in a day. It's probably not the fly is usually my standpoint. There are people that have a preference for what it needs to look like, and in the water, but a fired up muskie doesn't really care. He's eaten double 10 bucktail that he's probably already eaten 5 times in his life.
If you could drag this red mouse right here, if you could drag it with a big enough leader, he might eat it too. And it's plastic.
There's a video. I'm trying to remember the details. There's a video on YouTube. I'll have to send it to you so you can post it if it's of interest. But a guy literally ties a bucktail with a fidget spinner on the head, and he cuts off his own hair and uses that as the skirt, and he catches a muskie on it. There's other things that matter more, is how I should probably say it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's move into the next temperature. So we're going down in temperature a little bit, about 10 degrees at a time. Let's talk about 60 degrees. At 70, you've got a big profile. You're running it pretty fast. Don't really care too much about the color. You just need to be able to work it fast. That's kind of what I heard. Is that kind of accurate?
Just one more thing. Cover water. Maybe it's not speed that day, but your goal in summer when it's 70 plus, cover water. Find the muskies that are willing to eat that day.
If you come up on one that you get a big follow, right? And let's say it's not even really a hot follow, it's kind of just but not super lazy, but he's not, or she's not, whatever, is not really chasing super hard. You're gaining distance. Let's put it that way, between the fly and the fish as you retrieve it back. Do you go back later?
In that situation, I would probably, my choice immediately, it's not going to kill you to hit it right away, throw some more in there, size down, black, white, do that program. But I will on that when I'm like, it wasn't ready, but it was getting there. Mm-hmm. What's the next window? Is there a major coming up? Is there a sunset? Oh, maybe it's an hour later and I feel a wind switch. Ooh, let's go circle back over there and see if there's something. If you can, right? On a river, not always the easiest because you might be 2 miles down.
Yeah.
But if you can,
right.
It's those super hot ones that it's like, it's ready to go. You just gotta dial it in right now.
Now's the time.
And that you usually can tell because it like probably almost ate your fly or swiped at it and missed. And
All right, let's move into the 60 degree. Let's go there and walk through that same process with you.
Again, kind of where are we looking for muskies that time of year? Again, there's still, the range is happy. We're usually, at least on fall, we'll talk about as it goes from 70 down to 60. We're typically finding them to start moving to a little bit more of what I think about as like the power structures, the A spots. They're kind of staging in, and that big, good weed line, it's probably dying off a little bit. They're probably starting to get in there, and the windows get a little bit kind of tighter sometimes, and the activity will kind of congregate based on some weather patterns and stuff, because you got a lot of change going on in fall and storms coming in, and interesting moons in the October, November period. But so that's, though, when we get to flies, what are we doing to kind of accomplish that? We're starting kind of probably in that average 7 to 9 inch sucker, but now we really want to focus on swimming these flies and enticing strikes. We know where they're at. Can we find one feeding? We're not in the cover as much water program anymore. We're in the, for this week, they might be on wood, or for this week, we've been finding them on weeds, and they're starting to kind of be a little bit more predictable. In summer, it's shotgun scatter approach. So fly selection, I think, starts to matter a little bit more in terms of profile size, how it swims. I really start to like to use a lot of the glide style flies and the walk the dog, your classic pops and neutrally buoyant, give it something really worthwhile, because it's got a lot of things in its face. Seeing a lot of bait fish, suckers are moving up and down river at time, but got to really make it worth a shot. So that's when I think I really love fishing that period. I think a lot of people do. Up here, it's typically kind of the September motion. You guys are probably right about in that time period right now on the
yeah, it's late October now, so we're about there.
Because it's fun. You just muskies are still happy, and they started to congregate a little bit more than the summer, and you're just enjoyable to be out there. But as far as fly, just to stay on task there, we talked about kind of profile, really thinking about how it swims. And that's when you want to critique, am I really getting that good side to side? I think that's a really consistent, confidence inducing presentation. Color, again, same theme throughout. I think it doesn't matter a lot of the time, and yet we still spend a lot of the time debating it and talking it. And, I'll pick a color fly because I like that color. I tend to use a lot of sucker varieties. Maybe I'll add some chartreuse or pink in a little sucker pattern, but I want something that kind of has that sucker glow, and it just gives me confidence because I know that's what they're eating. It doesn't look strange. That's just a rule of thumb. There's no pink, yellow. It's all kind of producing. I think it's still maintaining the theme throughout. Muskies are muskies. You find a hungry one, you give it the right speed, presentation, profile. I think it's going to do the job 9 times out of 10 over color.
So you talked about you're going to the A spots. What are you talking about there? Because we hear that a lot.
So on my river, the GPS coordinates for the A spot are I'm kidding.
Hold on, let me get up here.
Well, I guess my question for you, like river, lakes, both.
Let's do rivers, I think.
Okay.
Even our lakes tend to move some. They're pretty low at that time of year, so there's a little flow. So yeah, let's just do rivers. I think that'd be the simplest thing.
So just to kind of stitch the pattern together, summer spreading out, right? I mean, that's where in summer and the transition from summer to fall, it's often when you're in the boat and you're just like, we always joke because it's too shallow here. Oh, there's a muskie. Oh, yeah, right. Like there's a muskie over there. Like they're just everywhere. They're surprising you. They're on the flats. They're up shallow. They're swimming in the deep. A spots that we start to identify on rivers, as we kind of get into the fall, which we're obviously still checking and fishing in the summer, but where they really start to show up, it's kind of in our rivers where you start to at least get the bends and the deeper holes. Doesn't mean they're going to be in the deeper holes yet, but they're going to be adjacent to it, or they might be in the fast water just above the hole, or they might be on some of the wood on the shoreline of the hole, or maybe there's some weed points. They're starting to congregate in, near, or towards their wintering holes, and we start to see them there. I think you also it's kind of the spots, this might sound stupid, but it's kind of the spots when you're floating down the river and you're like, oh, that's a good spot. The river bends and it gets deep, and there's like some deep wood on the outside bend, and good current. Those are usually what we're trying to work hard in this period, with the theory that we, going into it this time of year, you want to try and establish where they are. That's, I think, the first variable to try and get out of the way. So maybe the trip starts with you're covering water, or maybe because you fished yesterday or a buddy fished yesterday, man, they're on wood. Right. Once you find that, then I think it kind of clicks into what we talked about the fly. Good presentation, walk the dog, entice it, neutrally buoyant, all that good stuff.
Like a T-bone.
Yeah, like the good stuff. Like when we see a musky fly swimming in our brain, like you want that program going on.
Right.
You're fishing that time of year.
And do y'all up there, do you have rocks, rock walls, rock ledges, stuff like that? Or is that
on various lakes and rivers, not all of them, but various. We got so many different types of rivers. Some look like trout streams, some are just swampy, and they all hold muskies in between. But yeah, so the rocks and the wood, I think, play similarly this type of year. They start to warm up, and the bait fish come in.
That's exactly where I was going.
It's weird, at least on some of those rivers where there's rocks and wood present, they are not on both at the same time. We find it's usually a rock situation or a wood situation.
So they are very similar. That's
Yep.
interesting that we're probably 800 miles apart, something like that, and they react very similar.
Different. I mean, you guys have deeper rivers, which I think is the biggest difference to how you have to approach them. You know, and I talked this through with customers, right? Hey, I'm looking for fly line and I'm fish rivers like in Wisconsin or in Tennessee. I'm not asking for the rivers, but like, you know, you need to get a little bit deeper. You just got more room to work with, more water where they can be. That deep wood is deeper where you're at than it is where we're at. So
we try not to fish them here in the summer.
You get way hotter than we get windows. We get weeks and a month maybe here and a week there where we can chart, you know, but yeah.
But I think the summer is a good time to understand the river, even though the river is a little lower and you're not necessarily fishing for them. But if you can catch that river low, you can really understand what's going on in it, like this time of year, whenever it's, instead of getting down to 1 foot after 2 weeks of no rain, it's now down to 3 foot with 2-3 weeks with no rain. So you would understand it better if you could just get out there during at least one time and just float it and just to understand it.
Oh yeah.
And you know, maybe smallmouth fish too, of course, but not necessarily go after the muskie because they're laying on sand and, you know, they're trying to hunt down shade and mud and, you know, that sort of thing. And you don't want to handle them too much.
It's like, you don't want to handle them. And it's frankly coming from someone who musky fishes every waking second he can. Like it sucks, man. When it's 82 degrees water temp and maybe you're finding a bay with 79 and it's 95 out, like the fishing ain't good. Yes. It's horrible.
So true. So true. And it's hard. It's very, very difficult.
We'd rather have 32 freezing rain and like bring it on than so like save up, go bass fishing.
We, the first time that we ever went, I think it was 22 degrees outside whenever we shoved off and we had one on and caught in the net within 45 minutes. First time ever out. And then, you know, of course, we went for nothing for 3 trips or something like that, or one follow, something crazy. But all that to say that it was super cold out. It was cold that day. I mean, wind blowing, not fun until we caught the fish. And then it
warmed up real quick. Yep.
Till just before dark. Yeah. And then we got cold again. So, so let's move on down. Let's get into let's say 50 degrees and less. So now we're still talking about water temps, not air temps. I want to make sure that the listener's pretty clear on that.
Crap, we got to redo it all then. I'm kidding.
That's okay. I wasn't recording.
There you go. What do you guys get down to? Where do you guys kind of bottom out? Just before I would
say probably somewhere in the 40s, somewhere in there. But if it's in the 30s, I'm probably not fishing anyway because it's really cold and has been cold for a while.
Right.
You know, then we're looking for springs and stuff like that. So
when it's getting down colder later in the season, metabolism is going down. Yet like activity is going down, right? Throughout all fish, all species, but yet with musky, they are still eating, preparing for winter because they know they go into the spawn. We all hear about the fall feed bag. You know, there's still some people that don't quite believe in some of that, but at the end of the day, we see it happen on the water. They're eating. The big ones, they're packing on the pounds. It's when we see the biggest fish of the year. So we're getting after it. I think it's when people envision musky fishing in their head. Sometimes they only come out for the late fall stuff or the winter stuff for you guys. But the fishing can be a lot different, like opposite end of the spectrum to where we started this conversation. We are not covering water. We are doing the absolute opposite. You should know where they're at this point in the year. Yeah. And you've hopefully acquired that throughout the year, throughout the seasons, because they do stack up and they do congregate, you know, maybe not all in one spot, but there'll be several in several key spots. They're also eating bigger fish. We find, right? We look at the gear anglers. They're throwing huge pounders. It's when the big 17-inch suckers get ordered and they're working. And again, as with everything, this is kind of where I start. It can all trickle down and you'll probably find a day when it's 50-degree water temp and a muskie's eating a topwater. Like, yes, that'll happen. That we probably should have said that at the get-go of this whole thing. Like, yes, it is musky. Yes. They will drive you nuts. They might eat a worm on a bobber today. That might have been what it was going to take. Like it's all over the place. But what I have confidence in, what a lot of really good, better anglers than me have confidence in, is big, deep, slow, twitch it, roll it across the bottom, just neutrally buoyant, as big as you can cast. It has to be able to swim a little bit, but that's normally when the big articulated monsters just start to kind of come out. And it's not super fun to fish, and you wouldn't want to do it all day covering water, but you shouldn't have to. You might spend more time in a spot. Really make sure you got it from every angle. Come back at good windows. And I think that tends to be our program. When that stops working, we of course start to go a little bit slower, or a little bit smaller, a little bit more active with our presentation. But where we start is huge and almost dead. I mean, imagine if you could, what I tell people, imagine you are effectively fishing a sucker rig with a fly rod. It should take you a long time to get that fly back to the boat, because it's just sitting out there and twitching, and maybe you jerk some line up and let it hit. Like, you're doing all sorts of stuff to just kind of let it be out there and let a muskie come find it.
Yeah, we're trying to fish bigger holes, corners, stuff like that, with deeper runs, deeper structure, stuff like that. Try to work it slow as you can. I mean, sometimes it's just impossible to work slow all day long.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not going to live and die by, an hour's worth of casting at not exactly the right speed is not going to kill you.
No. But that's like the framework. At least what we're thinking about is as slow as you can.
Yeah, that's good information right there. And it's, again, difficult to do, very difficult to do, but it can be done. And the whole focus on muskie, and I say this often, I talk more people out of muskie fishing than I talk in the muskie fishing. So somebody will want to, I want to do a muskie trip. Yeah, are you sure you want to do a muskie trip? Because you're not going to go out there and have a 50 fish day. And some people are used to that. I caught 50 fish. Okay. What if you don't catch one? What if you don't even see one? We've had some trips where you just don't even see one. It just ain't your day.
Oh, yeah. It's happening everywhere, despite what you see on the social medias and, the weeks. When you've accrued a lot of muskie photos, you can make it look like they're biting every day, but they're not biting. They're not biting every day.
No, they're not.
And when they are, it's still tough. You got to kind of be on your guns, and you can't possibly do that 100% of the time for 100% of the day. And usually the 1 second you're not on your guns is the time it's going to happen. So you gotta, it's not for everybody. That's for sure. It's for psychos.
Yes, it is. It's when you're reaching down for your coffee cup. You just cast, you think, I want to grab a drink of coffee while this fly is falling. And you reach down to grab it, and inevitably I'm like, there he is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you got to get back in position. And then by the time you get back up from putting your coffee cup back in the holder, you're already freaked out 99% of the time. You're like, oh.
No, and I think that's why I can do this too. My wife will give me crap about this. Excuse me. You can see musky anglers get a little anal about things. Just like if a fly is in the water, you're watching it. I don't care if you just ripped it out of a tree and it hit the boat and fell back. Like swim it back the 3 feet back to the boat. If you're getting your line ready and that fly's dangling in the water, watch the fly. Like because it's happened. If you can think it's happened, it's happened. They've eaten it that way.
Yes, they have, and laughing at it still. They're having their own podcast.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we went down in temperature. I want to go up in temperature, just I don't know, from like 60 to 70.
Yep.
Water temp. If you want to go back up just that one step, just to give somebody the idea for the spring. I didn't think about that when we were talking, but I think if we can go up from 60 to 70, give the general angler an idea of the difference between going down and going up, I think is where I want to go.
Yep. And I will say, just to plug, someone that's got a lot of musky knowledge that he shared over the periods of his life. I think it's Steve Hiding, 7 degrees of musky location. So that's if people are interested in way more, go down that rabbit hole. Awesome conventional musky angler. But yeah, on the way up. So spring, or what we consider spring in Wisconsin, musky are just getting done with their spawn, in that you start to really see activity kind of pick up around mid to low 50s, probably better in the high 50s. When it's above 60, you're hopefully playing around with active fish. Generally, we're smaller. I think this is not rocket science if you've looked into musky fishing at all. Smaller in spring, bigger in fall. Generally, we're smaller because forage is smaller. Again, we're kind of on the same program though as the other side of the 60 degrees, which is A spots. This time though, we're just taking spawn into consideration instead of kind of the deep wintering hole. They're kind of geolocating, they came off of spawns. So they're coming out of those areas, or they're still in those areas, or they're around those areas. Even if you have, for the most part, non-reproducing muskies, they still go through the motions. They're still gonna seek out the warmer water. They're still gonna seek out they're gonna probably head upstream and in the rivers and find some of the warmer, shallower, sun-beaten, sun. I should have mentioned that earlier. Sun becomes such a big factor. Where it kills you in summer, it's your friend in this period, because it's warming up the bank and the wood and the weeds and all that stuff on both sides.
The rocks.
The rocks on the spring and the fall. So searching out warmer water, smaller. Usually I like spring because we can go really shallow too. The weeds aren't sloppy. They're kind of just popping off. So we're trying to find where they're popping off and working it through there, oftentimes shallow. And it can be fun fishing because you're just throwing 6 to 8 inch flies. You're not killing your arm. And usually you up here, we see more fish then. It can be a tougher ordeal to find the active ones. But you'll have several dozen follows in a weekend and it's just lethargic, non-committal. But it's spring. Once they really recover from spawn, they do start to pick up, and then it gets into the kind of June period before it gets back up into the summer 70s, which can be really fun. They're active, they're moving around, and they haven't had a year's worth of baits thrown at them yet. So
yeah, because not everybody's out there all winter and crazy like.
Well, and we can't, right? You guys.
Yeah, y'all can't, can you?
Yeah,
that's true, because y'all are frozen over.
Frozen, and season doesn't open till like May 1st, and then end of May in the northern zone, because we got naturally reproducing, so we let them spawn.
Oh yeah,
let them spawn, and then we kind of get after it. But it's also ice related. We don't have a pre-spawn opportunity that's open water.
Ice fishing, do people ice fish for them? I know I see that.
Not legal to harvest muskie. I mean, people will catch them and hopefully release them, and if you did, but it's not usually the program. People are after stuff to eat, so yeah, you'll catch them though. They'll be caught through the ice, eating a little worm on a jig on a little tiny ice fishing pole or a tip up.
Do y'all have perch up there?
Tons, yeah.
Do you? Yeah.
Tons of yellow perch.
I went on a steelhead trip to Michigan and tried a perch basket.
Oh, you ate perch, yeah. Woo! Perch, bluegill, walleye, pike, they're all delicious.
I went for walleye and came out with perch and was actually happy.
It's very good. Very good.
Yeah, it really is. So kudos to y'all for having that. We got crappie down here.
Also good. Also really good.
It's also good. So, well, one more question, then we'll look to close this thing out. I always like to give the guest the floor to help the angler that listens to our show. So kind of connect you two. We always open it up to the guest and ask this one last question. What haven't we asked that would be helpful for a musky angler to be successful at fishing for musky on the fly?
So I think that question for me is kind of, it's like, what matters is the question. What matters? Because you're just starting out, you're being exposed to loads of gear, and this is how you're supposed to tie your leader, and articulated and keel weighted flies, and wow, it's overwhelming. What matters? Wet flies swimming in front of muskies. And I think the key is flies have to be in the water and they have to be in front of muskies. And I'm not trying to be overly simple, but I see a lot of folks not fishing high probability musky water, in times where they're not there. And it's like, figure out that it can be painful and they're hard, but find fish, because that's what matters more than the rod. And are you water loading, or are you aerial casting, or of that stuff? All of the stuff we even talked about is really, you heard me answer about flies, and it's really about, well, where are the muskies? That's what we obsess about, because I think that's what gives you a shot. That's all you're looking for. I see that. I know it kind of backwards maybe wasn't even a question, but I just see so many folks. It's funny because I'm the guy that sells all the fly line and all the gear and all but the difference between that sink 3 and sink 6, it probably didn't matter unless you're finding fish and you need to get down deeper, but find the fish first. They'll eat a lot of crazy stuff presented in the wrong way, casted in the wrong way, the ugly, So it's kind of that. And I think there's a lot of knowledge out there from gear anglers and where to find them, how to find them. And I like that about them because they're elusive. It's the one fish for me really that pressure doesn't matter as much. Sure, we all want to fish the unpressured, beautiful river lake with 50 inches in it. Not many exist, but like it doesn't matter as much with muskie. You can be the 8th boat behind 7 other boats, dragging the 16th fly through that hole and be the one to catch it.
It may go back to that one that you turn around and go back to. Well, maybe that 2 boats in front of you fired it up and it's just getting back.
Exactly. Yep.
And you luck out.
Yep.
You just get lucky.
Yep.
It's nothing you didn't do. It wasn't the type 3 sink or the type 6 or whatever you're trying to throw out there.
It also kind of gets at that question, and then also the like. And I see this a lot. Where are the muskie? Can you show me a spot? Madison's great for that. I can pull up a map. I will circle the muskie spots. I'll circle 500 more spots too that might also have muskie, and another 500. and then I got a couple other spots that I haven't yet checked out over there. We all know where they are, but it's whose fly is in the water or whose bait is in the water at that moment in the right spots. The probability. I mean that in a more general way, like a lake, like the lakes in Madison. But I have people who like, man, I've been musky fishing Lake Mendota for 3 years and there's just not a lot of them in there. I'm like, yeah, there's not a lot of them in there. Go down the street down the street to the other one, man.
Don't hurt yourself.
Right. They're hard enough. They're hard enough.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you were saying a while ago about the type 3, type 6 or whatever, that sinking line that we were talking about. We're talking about getting down in the winter and fishing those holes and fishing them thoroughly. You can run the wrong fly line and get down too far and have to move that fly fast to keep the line off the bottom sometimes, even in the holes. So it is important. I don't want to discount that it is important to get the right fly line that sinks the right depth on both sides. One, maybe you're not getting down far enough. Maybe you're getting down too far with the heavier sink and you're like ticking the bottom with the knot or the something on the leader or something, and it's not, and so you start working that fly faster.
Oh yeah, all of that matters. But first, make sure it's where fish are at. Yeah, and then it does matter. It does really matter too. I think like you're getting them to follow but not eat. One I see very often is you're getting them to eat and you're not staying hooked up, like badly. Like, dude, I've like 2 dozen and none of them, and my buddy's got this other fly and he gets. Well, look at that fly. And do you have a hook gap issue? Is the hook sharp? Is it, there's going to be some gear things there, but got to find them. Yeah. And I just think that's the piece that honestly I see so many people still overlook is this. They're looking for this spot or they're trying all the different things. And it's first, if you are not seeing fish, that is what you should focus on. And then dial in the program from there, the flies and all that good stuff.
Fish where they are, not where they ain't.
Yeah. And that sounds like, again, it just sounds so dumb, but like muskie can be in all these crazy spots. It's a tough one to go on low probability hunts for.
Yeah, you've got to be willing.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys know these. Like, oh yeah, there's a muskie caught all the way up that creek. No way. Yeah, but is it like a spot that's got a fish per mile or more than that? Maybe not. Maybe one just cozied up there one spring. There's those rumors of brewing. I don't know about down by you, but all the time there's a muskie caught over there. It's like, okay, but are there enough in here to make it worth my 12 hours on a crappy 40-degree day to go?
Right.
Yeah.
One, we have that exact thing that's about an hour and a half from right here. Then we have another one that I had a guy fishing up in a creek right at the mouth, but in the creek, and had a big follow out of there. I mean, I can't go past that creek without having somebody throw right on the edge, but anyway, we've got those same things. And it's, we had, 3 falls out of this one brush pile. And then we caught one out of it, right after 3 falls. It looked like 3 different fish. And you might go by there 10 more times and not even see a fish, within 100 yards of there. So another way to say it too, and like again, the question, at least I thought you posed it to me, if I heard it correctly, was like, to have more success, what should I be doing? And there are times where low probability rumor mill stuff, go check that out. But like if you're out there fishing for muskie and you're consistently asking yourself,
are there fish here? It's a lot better to fish for them when you know they're there, because even when we know they're there, they still don't eat. They're still SOBs and like,
yes,
but it's a lot less mentally taxing and a lot more efficient.
You have to have that in you, and I don't know what it is, but you have to have it in you to be able to go all day and be on point, as much of that time as you could possibly be on point, and that ain't easy.
0 feedback days. They're the worst, but they are
yes,
they're frequent. And if they're more fun when you can. That's why I love tournaments for muskie, as weird as that sounds, because you get a data set that you never get. Like when you're out trout fishing, and when we're out trout fishing in the driftless, and you're proficient enough to get something there. If they're not biting, it's pretty obvious. With muskie, it leaves you wondering. Was it the other bank? Was it the other? Were they over there? Not there? Was it deeper? Was it slower? Was it And when you see a tournament go out, you see 40 boats on the same lake for the same window, and 80% of them get skunked, but 20% of them, happen to fall into one, or it at least okay. It gives you more motivation for those bad days. Power through.
The information is really, I hadn't thought about that, but the information is valuable.
Especially the ones, when it's on, like we get some here where it's literally one lake, 40 boats.
Yeah.
We're all fishing the same spots. We had one of those this year, and I was like, I really want to go fish this river. It was perfect. The flow was good. And we went out to the lake and did the tournament. And it was fun. And we gathered data, right? There was a 49 caught that day. And I was like, everybody out there was getting beat down, but there was a 49 caught.
If you can ever get 2 of them caught and find whatever connects them for that particular day, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
Oh, I think that last answer was good. It went into a lot of detail.
Awesome.
Around a simple sentence. Keep your fly in the water.
What matters? Keep your fly in front of muskies. Thanks for the freaking advice, Dan. Keep your fly in front of muskies. This guy.
Right. Yeah, right. I'm sure with this said, and I didn't mean this to sound the way that it sounded, that musky anglers are a different group with a different attitude. Maybe
they wear it like a badge of honor. You're not offending them. They're like, we're good. All different. Yeah. We're all. Yeah.
So I'm sure that somebody will get an email that, I fish musky and super fast with a fly that doesn't move in 50-degree water. That's all I catch them on. Okay, good.
it happens. I guarantee it. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They also get caught on bass flies. FYI. Jokingly, right? Like all year long. Yeah. All year long.
Oh, yeah.
4-inch murdets. Yeah. Pick up muskies. Go for it.
And I went musky fishing one time with I guess that fly is about 7 inches. All I caught was smallmouth the whole day. Best smallmouth day ever. Yeah. Ever.
That's awesome.
I have never had a better day than that one.
Fishing with a musky fly. I love it.
Yeah. So, Dan, I think that this information is helpful for the folks that are thinking, I might want to try musky. And I think there are some things in there that were helpful for the person that is probably an experienced angler. And like I said in the beginning, maybe it just reminds them of, I need to try that again, or I need to try that. Maybe it's a new idea, or maybe they mesh it together with an idea that they're thinking about. Because like I said in the beginning, everybody's got a theory, and those build upon each other. So I think that it's should be some helpful information if somebody takes the time and really listens to what was said here. So
I hope. And if you hated it, you can send me an email and tell me you hated it.
I honestly don't think that our listeners are quite that way. I haven't found anybody yet that I didn't think, dude, I like pride fishing.
There you go. That's good. That's important.
Yeah. So if you found value in the podcast, share the episode and the podcast with the friends who fish. Also drop by, like we said, the Southeastern Fly store to explore the merch that fuels the Southeastern Fly podcast. We could use some help in that area for sure. Dan, thank you for stopping by, man. I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate the willingness to give the listener information. That's important.
I enjoyed it, David. I appreciate you having me on, man. It was fun.
So Dan's a musky angler. He owns the online fly shop with his wife, Jen, who's also a musky angler. They're opening a brick and mortar store soon in Madison, Wisconsin. He can be found at muskyfool.com. You just listened to Dan Donovan on the Southeastern Fly podcast. See you next time. cannot remember what kind of rods he makes. What's the name of his
So
company?
his name is David W. Huff, Huff. So the company is the W and the Huff, Woof.
Oh, okay.
WHUFF. And he makes, I mean, the rods that we sell the most of at Musky Fool, he sells 9, 11, and a 12. That 11 and the 12. Super quality rod, comes with an extra tip. Isn't that super fast action stuff. It's a quality, good rod to cast for Musky. Extended butt. He's got a good 7-weight streamer stick, a 5-weight. He's got an 8-weight glass rod. So he's got some good stuff. He's a fun character. He also he's probably working on him right now. You'll have to ask him for me about his feathers, because he does some really good feather work. So you can see him on our site. Just big 10 to 14 inch slopping, all custom dyed and crazy